I still remember the day I stumbled upon the truth, sitting in my car, parked in the shadows of that bar, my heart racing like a trapped animal. The neon lights flickered in the dusk, casting a glow that seemed almost mocking. I had come to pick up Lisa, my wife, after her shift. It was supposed to be just another ordinary evening, but what I saw through the glass shattered that illusion in an instant. There she was, laughing, her head thrown back in delight, the kind of laughter that used to make my heart swell with joy. But this time it was different. She wasn't laughing with me. She was laughing with him, the bartender. I had always trusted Lisa, always believed in the sanctity of our marriage. So when I saw them leaning close, whispering secrets, the world around me blurred, and I felt a cold grip of betrayal tighten around my chest. The bartender was young, fit, and charming in a way I had long since stopped trying to be. I watched as he leaned over the bar, pouring her another drink, their fingers brushing against each other. My stomach twisted in knots. I could feel the heat rising to my face, a mix of anger and disbelief. I wanted to confront them right then and there, to drag her away and demand answers. But I stayed rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the realization that the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was sharing something intimate with another man. As the minutes dragged on, I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. Memories of our life together flooded my mind. The laughter, the late-night talks, the promises we made to each other. All of it felt like a cruel joke now. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined, and in that moment I felt the ground beneath me shift. I was no longer the husband. I was a man scorned. When she finally emerged from the bar, her face flushed with joy, I could barely contain the storm brewing inside me. I called her name, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my face. The moment she turned, the look of confusion in her eyes told me she had no idea I had seen everything. I wanted to scream, to let her know I knew about the affair, but instead I swallowed my anger and played the part of the oblivious husband. Driving home was a blur. My mind raced with thoughts of revenge, of how I could take back control of my life. I didn't want to be the victim in this tale of betrayal. I wanted to rewrite the ending. I needed to think, to plan, and to act. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. I replayed that scene in my mind over and over, each time feeling the sting of betrayal anew. I began to reflect on our marriage. Were there signs I had missed? The late nights at work, the sudden need for privacy, and the way she had started to dress up more than usual. I had brushed them off, attributing them to stress or a desire to feel good about herself. But now they all felt like red flags I had ignored. As I sat in my office, I started to formulate a plan. I knew I had to strike back, to hit her where it would hurt the most. It wasn't just about the bartender. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my sense of self-worth. I thought about the bar where they had met, where their affair had blossomed. I would buy that bar. I would take away the very place that had become their secret haven. I spent hours researching, finding out who owned the bar and how much it was worth. It wasn't easy, but I was determined. I had built a successful career in real estate, and the thought of owning that bar fueled my desire for revenge. I could see it clearly in my mind, the look on Lisa's face when she realized what I had done. I would fire him in front of her on her birthday, turning her world upside down. The more I planned, the more I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer the victim. I was the architect of my own fate. The days turned into weeks as I meticulously crafted my revenge. I dove deeper into the world of bars and businesses, learning the ropes of ownership and management. I was surprised at how quickly I began to enjoy the process. The thrill of taking control of my life, of plotting against the very people who had betrayed me, ignited a fire in me that I had forgotten existed. I spent hours researching the bar, known as the Rusty Anchor. It was a local favorite, a dive that had seen better days but still had a certain charm. I found out that it was owned by a couple who were looking to retire and had put it up for sale. The price was steep, but I had saved enough over the years to make a serious offer. I contacted a business broker and started the negotiation process, all while keeping my intentions hidden. Each time I thought about Lisa and the bartender, my resolve hardened. I replayed that moment of betrayal in my mind, the way they had leaned in clothes, the way she had laughed at his jokes. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I truly knew her. The woman I had loved seemed like a stranger now. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs, for trusting her so completely. In those moments of reflection, I found myself grappling with mixed emotions. I was angry, yes, but I was also hurt. The betrayal cut deeper than I had initially realized. I began to question everything about our marriage. Had I been a good husband? Had I done enough to keep her happy? The self-doubt gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. This wasn't about my failings, it was about hers. As the days stretched on, I became consumed with the idea of vengeance. I envisioned the day I would walk into the Rusty Anchor, my heart pounding with anticipation, and confront the bartender. I imagined the look on his face when he realized who I was. And Lisa, oh, the look on her face would be priceless. The thought of her shock and humiliation fueled my determination. The negotiations for the bar progressed smoothly, much to my surprise. The broker was impressed with my business acumen, and I found myself quickly immersed in the details of the purchase. I learned about the bar's finances, the staff schedules, and the clientele. I even began to think about how I would run the place. It felt exhilarating to have a new focus, a new goal that didn't involve the heartache of my crumbling marriage. But even as I planned, there was a part of me that wondered if I was going too far. Was I really prepared to destroy Lisa's world? The thought of her crying, of feeling the same pain I had felt, stirred a small pang of guilt within me. Yet every time I felt that guilt creeping in, I remembered the laughter she had shared with the bartender. I remembered the way she had betrayed my trust. I decided to compartmentalize my feelings. This was business, I told myself. I was taking control of my life, and I had every right to do so. I was no longer the victim. I was the predator, and they were my prey. It was a twisted sense of justice, but it was mine, and it felt right. Finally, the day came when the sale was finalized. I was now the proud owner of the Rusty Anchor. I stood outside the bar, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and anticipation. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of spilled beer and grease wrapping around me like an old friend. The bar was filled with the usual crowd, laughing and chatting, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit. I felt a surge of power as I walked behind the bar, surveying my new domain. I spotted him, the bartender, the man who had stolen my wife's heart, or so he thought. He was busy pouring drinks, laughing with some patrons, completely oblivious to the fact that his life was about to change forever. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision settle heavily on my shoulders. I had to act quickly. I needed to execute my plan and confront them both on the day that would mark Lisa's birthday. I wanted to make it unforgettable, a day that would haunt them both for the rest of their lives. As I stood there in the bar, I couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and trepidation. This was my chance to reclaim my dignity, to show them both that I was not to be trifled with. The clock ticked down to that fateful day, and I could hardly contain my excitement. I was ready to unleash my revenge, to take back what was rightfully mine. The days leading up to Lisa's birthday felt like an eternity. I marked the calendar with a red X, counting down the hours until I would execute my plan. Each tick of the clock fueled my anticipation, and I found myself practically vibrating with excitement. I had spent the last few weeks preparing for this moment, and I was determined to make it unforgettable. As the day approached, I focused on every detail. I wanted everything to go perfectly. I arranged for the bar to be decorated with balloons and streamers, a stark contrast to the dark intentions swirling inside me. I hired a small band to play some music, ensuring that the atmosphere would feel festive. It would be a celebration for Lisa, but the real celebration would be my revenge. I decided to keep my ownership of the Rusty Anchor a secret from Lisa. I wanted her to walk in, blissfully unaware of my presence, and feel the shock wash over her when she realized what was happening. I imagined her walking in with that same carefree smile, only to have it wiped away the moment she saw me standing behind the bar, ready to confront her and the man who had betrayed me. On the day of her birthday, I arrived early to make sure everything was in place. The staff was briefed on what was about to happen, and they were all in on the plan. I could see the mix of excitement and concern in their eyes, but they knew better than to question me. I was now the boss, and I expected them to follow my lead. The hours dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. I watched as the regulars filtered in, exchanging birthday wishes and laughter. The bar buzzed with energy, and I felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was ready to take control of the narrative, to reclaim my power. When Lisa finally walked in, my breath caught in my throat. She looked stunning, her hair cascading down her shoulders, her eyes sparkling with joy. I watched her as she greeted friends and accepted birthday hugs, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. And then I saw him, the bartender. He was standing behind the bar, serving drinks with that cocky grin of his. My heart raced with a mix of anger and satisfaction. This was the moment I had been waiting for. As Lisa made her way toward the bar, I stepped out from behind it, my heart pounding with anticipation. The moment I revealed myself, I could see her eyes widen in shock. Surprise! I called out, my voice cutting through the noise of the bar. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to me. The look on Lisa's face was priceless, confusion mixed with horror as she registered who I was and what I was about to do. "What are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I own this bar now, Lisa," I announced, relishing the power that surged through me. "And I think it's time we had a little chat." Bartender's face paled as he realized who I was. I could see the panic in his eyes as he glanced between Lisa and me, trying to gauge the situation. I took a step closer, my gaze locked on him. "Let's not waste any time," I said, my voice steady. "You're fired." The bar erupted in whispers, and I could feel the tension in the air. Lisa's expression shifted from shock to anger as she processed my words. "You can't do this," she shouted, her voice rising above the crowd. "You don't have the right." "Oh, but I do," I replied, a cold smile creeping across my face. "I own this place and I can do whatever I want. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." Lisa's eyes darted between me and the bartender, her anger morphing into desperation. "Please don't do this. We can talk about this at home," she pleaded, but I could see the facade of confidence slipping away. I turned my attention back to the bartender, who was now standing frozen behind the bar, his hands trembling slightly. "You thought you could just take my wife away from me without consequences?" I asked, my voice low and menacing. "You thought I wouldn't find out," he stammered. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." "That's not good enough," I snapped. "You were supposed to be a professional, not a homewrecker." The bar was silent, every patron riveted by the unfolding drama. I could feel the weight of their stares, the judgment in the air, but I didn't care. This was my moment, my chance to reclaim my dignity. Lisa stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "You're making a huge mistake. This isn't how you handle things." I ignored her, my focus solely on the bartender. "Get out," I commanded. "Leave this bar and don't ever come back." He hesitated for a moment, then slowly began to gather his things. I watched as he walked out, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The power I felt in that moment was intoxicating. Turning back to Lisa, I could see the tears welling in her eyes. "This is your birthday, and I thought it would be the perfect time to show you the truth," I said, my voice steady. "You wanted to have your fun, and now you'll have to deal with the consequences." As she stood there, speechless and trembling, I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. I had taken control, shattered their little world, and forced her to confront the reality of her choices. But as I looked into her eyes, I couldn't help but wonder, was this truly the end, or just the beginning of a much darker chapter? The atmosphere in the rusty anchor was electric, charged with tension and disbelief. As Lisa stood there, tears glistening in her eyes, I felt a strange mix of triumph and unease. I had executed my plan flawlessly, but now that the moment was here, the weight of my actions began to settle heavily on my heart. "Why, Jason?" Lisa finally managed to choke out, her voice trembling. "Why would you do this to me? Why?" I echoed, disbelief flooding my veins. "You're asking me why? You're the one who decided to betray our marriage with a bartender. You don't get to play the victim here, Lisa." The bar patrons murmured, their eyes darting between us, eager for the drama to unfold. I was acutely aware of the spotlight I had thrust upon us. I had wanted revenge, but I hadn't fully considered the aftermath of my actions. "Please, let's just talk about this," she pleaded, stepping closer. "This isn't the way to handle things. You can't just come in here and make a scene." "Make a scene?" I laughed bitterly. "You've made a scene of our entire marriage. You chose him over me, and now you want me to be quiet about it. I didn't mean for it to happen," she cried, desperation etched on. "It was a mistake. We were having problems, and I thought—" "You thought what?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You thought it was okay to find comfort in someone else's arms. You thought I wouldn't care." The anger surged inside me again, and I could feel the heat of betrayal flooding my senses. I had wanted to be the one to hurt her, to show her the consequences of her action, but now I was standing here, feeling lost in the very emotions I had hoped to control. "I loved you, Jason," said, her voice cracking. "I thought we could fix things. I thought you would understand." "Understand?" I repeated incredulously. "You think I could ever understand this? You've shattered everything we built together. I can't just overlook it." In that moment, I realized how far I had fallen from the man I used to be. The pain of her betrayal had morphed me into someone I barely recognized. I had wanted to reclaim my power, but now it felt as if I had traded my humanity for revenge. "Everyone here knows what you did," I spat, gesturing to the crowd that had gathered to witness our confrontation. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? To throw away everything we had for a cheap thrill. Now you'll have to live with the consequences of your choices." Lisa's face fell, and for the first time I saw remorse flicker in her eyes. "I didn't want this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a pang of something, regret perhaps, but I pushed it down. I had come too far to backtrack now. "Well, it's too late for that," I replied coldly. "I've made my decision." Suddenly, the band began to play a lively tune, breaking the thick tension in the air. It was jarring against the backdrop of our confrontation. I watched as patrons began to shift uncomfortably, unsure of how to react. The laughter and music felt like a cruel reminder of what I had lost. I turned to the bar staff, who were watching the scene unfold with wide eyes. "From now on, I'll be running things my way," I declared, my voice steady. "And that includes making sure none of you ever forget what happens when someone betrays trust." The bartender had left, but the damage was done. Lisa stood there looking small and vulnerable, the life I had known with her hanging by a thread. I was aware that I had taken a drastic step, but in my heart I believed it was necessary to show her the consequences of her actions. "Let's go home," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk." "Talk?" I scoffed. "What's there to talk about, Lisa? You've made your choice." "I know I messed up," she said, desperation creeping into her voice again. "But I want to fix this. I want to make things right." "Right," I laughed bitterly. "You think you can just sweep this under the rug? You think I'm just going to forget about what happened?" "I don't expect you to forget," she shot back, her voice rising. "But I love you, Jason. I want to fight for us." "Love," I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "You've twisted that word into something unrecognizable. You don't get to claim love after what you did." The bar was still buzzing with the aftermath of our confrontation, but I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. I had taken a stand, and despite the chaos, I felt that I had reclaimed some of my power. But at what cost? As I looked at Lisa, I couldn't help but wonder if this was truly the end of our story. The pain of betrayal still burned deep within me, but I also felt a flicker of something else. Perhaps hope that we could rebuild our relationship, if only she could prove to me that she was worthy of my trust again. But could I ever trust her again? As I stood there watching her struggle to hold back tears, I realized that the path ahead was uncertain. I had taken my revenge, but the road to healing was fraught with challenges. "Let's get out of here," I said finally, my voice softer now. "We need to talk, but not here, not in front of everyone." As we walked out of the Rusty Anchor, I felt the weight of my actions settle on my shoulders. I had taken control, but the consequences of that control were only just beginning to unfold. The drive home was silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. I could feel Lisa's eyes on me, searching for some sign of forgiveness or understanding. But all I could think about was the betrayal that had led us to this moment, a betrayal that felt like a wound that would never heal. As we pulled into the driveway, the familiar sight of our home felt foreign. It was a place that had once been filled with warmth and laughter, but now it felt more like a battleground. I stepped out of the car, my mind racing with thoughts of what I wanted to say and how I could possibly express the depth of my hurt. Lisa followed me inside, her footsteps hesitant. The moment we crossed the threshold, I could feel the weight of the conversation ahead pressing down on us. I turned to face her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Do you understand what you've done?" I asked, my voice low and steady. "You've shattered the trust we built over years. You've embarrassed me in front of everyone at that bar. Do you have any idea how that feels?" I "No," she said, her voice trembling. "And I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. I was lost and I thought I could find myself outside of our marriage. I was wrong." "Lost?" I echoed, disbelief flooding my tone. "You think finding comfort in another man is going to solve your problems? That's not lost, Lisa. That's a choice. You chose him over me." "I know," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I was selfish. I didn't think about the consequences. I just wanted to feel alive again." "Alive?" I shook my head, frustration boiling over. "You think cheating on your husband makes you feel alive? You've destroyed everything we had. I can't just ignore that." "I don't expect you to," she replied, her voice cracking. "But I want to try to make it right. I love you, Jason. I want to fight for us. Can't we at least try?" Her words hung heavy in the air, and for a moment I was torn. Part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could rebuild, that love could conquer the betrayal. But another part of me was screaming to protect myself, to guard my heart against further pain. "What does that even mean, Lisa?" I asked, my voice softer now. "How do you expect me to trust you again? You broke me." "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, stepping closer, desperation in her eyes. "I'll go to counseling. I'll be completely open with you. I'll make sure you know you're the only one I want. Just give me a chance." I wanted to scream that it was too late, that she had lost her chance the moment she chose to betray me. But I could see the sincerity in her eyes, the raw pain that mirrored my own. Maybe there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for us to salvage what was left. "I don't know if I can do this," I confessed, my heart aching. "The betrayal still feels fresh and it's hard to see beyond the hurt. How do I know this isn't just words?" "I'll prove it to you," she said, her voice steady now. "I'll show you that I can change. I'll fight for you, for us. Just please don't give up on me yet." I took a deep breath, the weight of her words settling heavily on my chest. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was a way forward if we both committed to healing, but it wouldn't be easy. I would have to confront my own pain and insecurities head on. "I need time," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need to process everything. I don't want to rush into anything, and I don't want to make promises I can't keep." "I understand," she replied, her voice softening. "Just know that I'm here and I want to work through this. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." In that moment, I felt a flicker of something, cautious optimism, perhaps. It was hard to believe that our relationship could be salvaged, but I was willing to give it a chance. The following weeks were challenging. We began to attend counseling sessions together, where we struggled to unpack the layers of our relationship. Each session was a roller coaster of emotions, forcing us to confront our past and the choices that had led us to this point. Lisa opened up about her feelings of inadequacy and the pressure she felt to maintain a perfect image. I shared my struggles with trust and the pain of feeling betrayed. It was an arduous process, but slowly, we started to communicate better. As I began to let my guard down, I found myself grappling with the reality of our situation. I had taken my revenge, and while it had brought me a sense of empowerment, it hadn't filled the void that the betrayal had created. I realized that holding onto anger wouldn't heal me. It would only keep me trapped in a cycle of pain. One evening, after a particularly intense counseling session, we sat down together on the couch. I looked into Lisa's eyes, searching for the love that had been buried beneath layers of hurt. "I'm willing to try," I said finally, "but it's going to take time. I need to see real change." "Thank you," she replied, tears of relief streaming down her face. "I won't let you down, I promise." As we embraced, I felt a sense of hope for the first time in a long while. The road ahead would be difficult, but I had taken the first step toward healing. We had both made mistakes, but perhaps we could learn from them and emerge stronger together. Yet, as I held her close, a nagging thought lingered in the back of my mind. Would I ever truly be able to trust her again? Or would the shadow of betrayal always loom over us, a constant reminder of what we had lost? As the weeks turned into months, Lisa and I began to navigate the fragile landscape of our renewed relationship. It was a delicate dance, filled with moments of tenderness and reminders of the past that threatened to pull us apart. The road to healing was not linear. It was filled with ups and downs, and I found myself constantly questioning whether we were truly making progress or simply going through the motions. We continued our counseling sessions, which became a safe space for us to express our feelings and fears. Lisa worked hard to demonstrate her commitment to rebuilding our relationship. She was more open, more attentive, and made a genuine effort to rekindle the spark that had dimmed between us. Yet, every time I saw her reach for her phone or laugh at a joke, my heart would clench with doubt. What if she was still hiding something? What if my trust was misplaced? One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I decided to open up about my fears. "I want to believe that we can move forward," I said, my voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "But sometimes I feel like I'm still standing on the edge, afraid to take the leap." "I understand," Lisa replied, her gaze softening. "I know I've broken your trust and it's going to take time to rebuild it. But I'm here, and I'm committed to proving that I'm worth it." Her sincerity resonated with me, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh. I could feel the weight of our past pressing down on me, and I struggled to shake the lingering doubts. I had taken my revenge, yes, but the emotional turmoil that followed had left me feeling lost and unsure. As we continued to work through our issues, I found myself slowly letting go of the anger that had fueled my revenge. I realized that I had been using it as a shield, a way to protect myself from the pain of vulnerability. But now, as I faced the reality of our relationship, I knew that I had to confront my own fears head-on. One night, I decided to take a leap of faith. I planned a surprise dinner for Lisa, a chance for us to reconnect outside the confines of our home and the weight of our past. I wanted to show her that I was willing to embrace the possibility of a future together. As I set the table, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I wanted to create a beautiful evening, one where we could both let our guards down and simply enjoy each other's company. When Lisa walked in, her eyes lit up with surprise and joy. "Wow, this looks amazing," she exclaimed, her smile genuine. "Just a little something to remind us of what we're fighting for," I said, trying to mask the nervousness in my voice. We sat down to dinner, and as we shared stories and laughter, I felt the tension between us begin to dissipate. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of hope creeping back into my heart. "Thank you for doing this," Lisa said, her voice softening as we shared a moment of quiet intimacy. "It means a lot to me." "I want us to be happy again," I replied, my gaze steady. "But I need to know that we're both in this together. No more secrets, no more lies." "I promise," she said, her eyes shining with sincerity. "I'll always be open with you from now on. I want to rebuild our trust brick by brick." We finished dinner, and as we cleared the table together, I felt a sense of camaraderie returning. It was a long way from where we had started, but I could see glimpses of the love we once shared. However, the past would always be a part of us, a shadow that lingered in our minds. I had taken my revenge, and while it had provided a moment of satisfaction, it hadn't filled the void of trust that was necessary for our relationship to thrive. I realized that true healing would require more than just time. It would require effort from both of us. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to Lisa. "I don't know what the future holds for us, but I want to try. I want to believe in us again." "I do too," she said, reaching for my hand. "We can't change the past, but we can shape our future together." That moment felt like a turning point. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and for the first time in a long while I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps we could rebuild what had been lost. Perhaps we could learn to trust each other again. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over us, I realized that the journey ahead would be challenging. But I was no longer afraid. I had faced the darkness of betrayal and emerged stronger. I was ready to embrace the possibility of love and healing, knowing that while the scars of the past would always remain, they could serve as reminders of the strength we had found within ourselves. In the end, I learned that revenge may provide a moment of power, but true strength lies in the ability to forgive and rebuild. Love is not just about the absence of betrayal. It's about the willingness to face the hurt, to confront the pain, and to choose each other again and again despite the scars. As I held Lisa's hand, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but together we could face whatever came our way. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that we would be okay.